welcome to Ballot Meridian coverage. I'm Brett Cast, and joining us for this interview today is John Veenstra, Democratic incumbent candidate for Meridian Township Board Trustee. Welcome, and would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yes, well, as you said, I am an incumbent trustee. In fact, I'm the only person running for re-election as a trustee for trustee. Other members of the board are running for supervisor, but I'm the only one that's simply running for re-election as a trustee. And I pride myself on bringing a certain degree of intelligence to the job. I think curiosity is important, so you're interested in looking into the issues. I think it's very important to listen to the citizens and their concerns, and I pride myself on doing that. And I think it's important to ask questions and think independently. And I think those who know me know I do those things.
Thank you. And each Meridian Township Board Trustee candidate will be asked a standard list of 12 questions. So let's get started with question number one. What qualifications do you bring to the position of Township Trustee?
Well, the first one, I guess, would be, well, intelligence perhaps, I hope, and experience, because I'm now in my 12th year on the board. And previous to that, I was Ingham County Commissioner representing part of Meridian Township for 4 years. And I think I had an outstanding record during that time. I accomplished getting the county to buy the land for what's now Lake Lansing Park South. I got money in the '77 budget to start Lake Lansing Park North. I got federal funds to pay half the cost of dredging Lake Lansing, which got that project off the ground. And it was my maneuver and motion that got the county to build the new medical care facility on Dobie Road. So the existing building was then turned into the Carriage Lane Apartments. So I think a very good record for 4 years.
And question number two, explain what you know about policy governance and whether or not you believe it is serving the community members in the township.
Well, the previous supervisor was a huge advocate of policy governance. I happen to think it's undemocratic and nonsense. And as far as I know, policy governance is largely dead in Meridian Township. When I came on the board, I was told I was not allowed to talk to any staff person except the manager. And I completely ignored that because I spoke to the staff person who I thought would have the information I needed. And I think, as they say, I think policy governance is pretty much a dead letter these days. We used to spend thousands of dollars a year on policy governance, and we stopped doing that.
And question number three, the township, much like other municipalities across the state, is facing huge pension liabilities. What direction would you like to see the board take on pension funding if elected?
Well, specifically, our pension liability is some $27 million. We have about 8 different unions, and each one has their own pension plan with different employee contributions, different multipliers, et cetera. And as they say, well, 18 million of that pension debt is to 2 unions. The biggest chunk is to the firefighters, which is really our paramedics, and police command. Those two are 18 million of the 23 million that we owe to the MERS pension system we participate in. We're in negotiations with our bargaining units this summer, and we obviously are going to have to renegotiate those pensions so they're not so generous, because we just cannot sustain giving out this much money. And I'm pro-union, pro-labor, but obviously our pensions are just not sustainable, so they're going to have to be cut. And if we don't change the formula to cut it back so it's less generous, our pension debt will soon be well over $30 million. So we do have to address that, but the board has already had a meeting on it, and the manager knows he has to cut these back, and that's one of his prime goals in the negotiations this summer.
Now, moving on to question number 4, what essential functions of the township would you like to see improved and why?
Well, obviously we have to continue to run, the majority of township funds go for our police and what was called firefighters, but really is paramedics, because that's 85% of what our fire department does is ambulance runs. We have to continue to do those well and the other government functions. To be specific, the one thing I've been focused on for the last year or so is we need to improve our Ready Ride service. Now, most of Meridian Township is not dense enough to be served by, fixed route buses. So it's essential in Meridian Township that we have Ready Ride, which is a curb-to-curb service that will go to your house. And our population is gradually growing older, so we're going to have an increasing number of people who can't drive. So the Ready Ride service is essential. Unfortunately, it has not been operating as efficiently as it should. And if you call on the phone, you have to wait 15 minutes to even talk to a person. Too often, no rides are available because it's just too popular. So we must get more rides. And I have a plan to do that, which involves, we need to break CATA's monopoly on furnishing Ready Ride services, so CATA will have a more incentive to be efficient and provide more rides.
Moving on to question number 5, what do you feel about the Michigan Brownfield program and the impact it may or may not have on the community?
Well, the first thing that citizens ought to know is the Brownfield tax credits are really a hoax, because they're sold to the public as cleaning up contamination. But the law is written vaguely enough so it's really a slush fund where a developer can ask for any sum he thinks he can get, and the government can just give away whatever they want, and it can be millions of dollars. So giving away millions of dollars of taxpayer money obviously has an impact. For example, the Township Board approved an $8 million Brownfield tax credit for the property Shaw's Triangle at Newton and 78. There was $75,000 cost to clean up the pollution. And over my strenuous objections, the board granted an $8 million Brownfield credit. And that was paying for putting in streets, sewers, water lines, and even over $1 million in interest. It was just a gift to the developer of over $7 million. And I strenuously opposed it. Same thing with Douglas J. The board approved a Brownfield tax credit. Fortunately, Shaw's Triangle was never built because of the recession. And now the New Hope, just this past Tuesday on June 7th, we approved the New Hope Church going in on that site. Another example of the Brownfield credit board approved, again over my strenuous objections, was for Douglas J. And again, we approved over 10 times the cost of cleaning up the pollution. And this past Tuesday, June 7th, the board rejected a Brownfield credit of $2 million for the square 400-bed apartment complex on the south side of Grand River, west of Park Lake Road, immediately east of Denny's. They started out asking for $5 million. We refused that. Then they asked for $4 million. We refused that. Then they asked for $3 million, and it was my motion to deny that, which passed. And they came back and asked for $2 million, and there was only one vote for giving them $2 million. So hopefully we're not going to give away millions. Now, upcoming, we just, again, on this past June 7th, approved Okemos Point, which is a very, very large apartment complex. It's 19 buildings, nearly 400 apartment units, close to 800 beds, and they have told us that they're going to be asking for a Brownfield tax credit, but they haven't told us how much they're going to ask for yet. Same thing with Costco. Costco wants to come to town south of Saginaw Highway east of Park Lake Road, north of Hazlitt Road. And at the community meeting on June 2nd, they told us that they are going to be asking for millions in brownfield tax credit. And I see no reason why they should get a brownfield tax credit. Again, it's just a sheer gift to developers and just fattens their profits. So as they say, I think it's largely a hoax because it's really not related to cleaning up contamination as it's described. It's really just a gift to developers.
Moving on to question number 6, Meridian Township is undergoing a branding campaign. How would you describe the brand image of the township?
Well, I have a little problem with what branding actually is. I asked at a board meeting and I was told it was to create buzz about the community. At that time, we'd appropriated $50,000 to hire a consultant to create this buzz. And it was, some members of the board thought that was not enough, and so the majority, over my objections, voted to add $30,000 more to bring it up to $80,000 for this campaign to create buzz. Obviously, you know, I think what's nice about Meridian, I think it's a very nice place to live. We have excellent schools, we have good parks, and those are the kind of things. Obviously, our biggest natural feature is Lake Lansing, and our second one would be the Red Cedar River, which I think we need to make better use of as a canoe path, et cetera. But those things are being worked on.
Moving on to question number 7, what do you believe are the needs of the community, and explain how you plan to meet those needs or expand upon those needs?
Again, that's a little vague, but well, back a step. I think we need to take global warming very seriously. People are dying every week from the effects of global warming, like tornadoes in the wintertime, and Texas is flooded, et cetera. So part of trying to prevent global warming is being energy efficient, reducing emissions, and recycling. And I think one of the things the township needs to do is require that recycling be available to the residents of apartment complexes. We don't require this now, and many large apartment complexes don't offer the opportunity to recycle to their residents, and I think that's wrong and something the township should correct. Other things, I believe that we need to get more rides on ready rides. So when a person, say a senior citizen doesn't drive, or a blind person calls to get a ready ride, they can get a ride and not being told that, sorry, it's all booked up, none are available.
And moving on to question number 8, what is your opinion regarding medical marijuana and the local municipality's role, if any?
Well, I think there's massive evidence that medical marijuana helps a great many people because the federal government prevented research on marijuana for a long time. We don't have the scientific research that we should have to have the data on exactly which component of marijuana has which medical effect. But there's massive anecdotal evidence that medical marijuana really helps a lot of people. And in fact, the issue of medical marijuana first came before the township board when a member of the board wanted to put in a moratorium on the opening of medical marijuana dispensaries in Meridian Township. That effort failed, and we did not put in the moratorium. The Herbal Center opened in Meridian Township on the northwest corner of Lake Lansing and Tower. And I didn't know much about medical marijuana, but I stopped in there once it was open, and the owner was kind enough to brief me about medical marijuana. I went back a second time, and he showed me where he's growing the marijuana plants. And I think we had maybe 3 letters objecting before they came in. Once they were operating, and they were serious about providing medicine for people. We got testimonial letters from people that said, the woman said, my husband was in a wheelchair, taking a whole slew of pills, and then when he started using medical marijuana, his health greatly improved. He was able to walk a little bit, cut back the pills, and so on. And a number of people came to our board meeting and said the same thing. So I think we must recognize the medical benefits of medical marijuana. We need to do more research, but it's a fact. And basically, I think we have regulations on the books, so you can't open a store, whether you want to sell tomato plants or medical marijuana, without getting an occupancy permit from Meridian Township. You have to be in a commercial zone to run a store, and you have to pass a building inspection and a fire inspection. And if those inspections are passed, I think we don't need other restrictions on the medical marijuana. And we have enough on the books.
And moving on to question number 9, what approach do you propose to address blight in the township?
Well, I think it's important that we have code enforcement. I think we have quite a few regulations. In fact, I'm against unreasonable regulations, but we need a certain amount of regulations. And I think it's important for our code enforcement people to address the really serious problems and not harass citizens for minor technical violations, like somebody having their house number on their mailbox and not on their house, or not the right size numerals on the house or something like that. I think we should go after the real problems. And yes, some code enforcement on the really serious problems is absolutely necessary.
Now, moving on to question 10, do you believe the township is doing enough to help the business districts thrive in the township? Why or why not?
Well, we'd like to do more. We have assigned a full-time staff person, Peter Menzer, to work on helping businesses. Either he calls on existing businesses to see if they have any problems, or he helps to new businesses that are thinking of coming to the township, assist them in helping to go through the process and so on. So obviously we have business districts like Hazlitt, Carriage Hills, and some on Grand River that we'd like to see more development. But basically, we can help businesses, but the business has to decide that they want to have a business and come here to Meridian Township. And in some senses, I think the best township government can do for businesses is get out of the way. And one way we get out of the way is run our government efficiently so as to keep taxes down, because the higher the taxes are, that's an impediment to business.
Moving on to question 11, please address the condition of Meridian Township's infrastructure.
Well, the most prominent thing of our infrastructure is, of course, our roads, and our roads are in terrible shape. We all know that we need to improve our roads, and the irony is it costs more than twice as much to keep your roads in poor condition as to keep them in good condition, because it's a lot cheaper to repave a road that's in good condition than have to fix one that has to be rebuilt because it's gotten so bad. Unfortunately, the way roads should be funding is out of fuel taxes, out of gas tax. And the legislature should have increased the gas tax to fix our roads, and they just didn't do their job and didn't do that. So in sort of as a last resort, the Meridian Township Board asked the voters to approve $0.25 to raise some money for repaving the worst of our local streets. But obviously the streets need to be in better shape, and we need to work on keeping our sewer lines. Some of those leak, which is bad because, well, particularly if rainwater infiltrates into the sewer line, we have to pay for the amount of sewage by volume that we send to East Lansing to be treated, so that rain infiltration costs us money. So we're redoing some sewers, relining, et cetera, so as to cut down on the infiltration. But this is something we have to constantly work on, keeping our sewer and water lines up to date. But unfortunately, the road funding is largely out of our hands.
Moving on to our last question, question number 12. What do you consider to be the top 2 challenges facing Meridian Township?
Well, as I said, probably roads, but that's largely out of our hands. Basically, we need to run the government efficiently and make it responsive to the citizens. As a specific, I mentioned that we need to get more recycling and we need to get more rides on Ready Ride. And unfortunately, when the voters renewed the 2/10 of a mil for Ready Ride in 2008, there was language slipped in on the ballot that said we would have to operate through CATA. And that's foolish because you never say who your vendor is going to be before you go out for proposals, because obviously you don't get good competition that way. So what we need to do is put the question on the ballot this November to reauthorize Ready Ride without the CATA monopoly. And then we'll be able to go out for proposals and go to the best proposal. Might still be CATA, might be Dean Transportation, might be a consortium of taxi, a lot of opportunity. But once we're not locked into CATA, we have the opportunity to push for more efficient operation, and because of greater efficiency and lower cost, I hope we can increase the rides from 20,000 a year to 30,000. So when people call for a ride, they'll be able to get a ride.
All right, well, thank you. At this time, we have finished the standard list of questions with John Veenstra, who is a Democratic incumbent candidate for Meridian Township Board Trustee. And we have about 5 or so minutes remaining, so I have some follow-up questions, if you don't mind. I guess the first question, is there anything that maybe I didn't ask, or any questions or any topics that you wanted to touch on that weren't in the list of questions?
Well, one of the biggest issues facing Meridian Township that you didn't touch on was the bus rapid transit system, BRT. That's a $143 million issue. So I think it's worth paying some attention to. Now, as you should have gathered earlier, I'm a strong advocate for mass transit, but I have a lot of questions about the BRT. First one, of course, is where is the money coming from? That $143 million is a lot of money. Second, how is CATA plan to spend all that money? And they won't really tell us. And so as a board member, I feel I have a duty to know how money's going to be spent before I will approve spending it. And then the other thing about the BRT is CATA's design for the BRT. One of the features of the BRT is it has dedicated lanes for the buses. Question is, should those dedicated lanes be in the center of the road or should they be at each curb? I think being in the center of the road doesn't work because, first of all, another criteria for BRT is level boarding. That means you have to have a 15-inch high block of concrete to board from. I think it's an unacceptable road hazard to put a 15-inch high block of concrete in the middle of Grand River Avenue. Also, they will prohibit all left turns except at signal lights. And that will have a huge impact on businesses like Playmakers or Denny's. You won't be able to make a left turn into those businesses. I think that's a problem. I think it's a hazard for passengers boarding the bus to have to go to the center of Grand River Avenue. That just seems to me too dangerous. And if you put the dedicated lanes curbside, then you can put the bus stops wherever you need them, and it's much safer for passengers to board the buses. It's just, I think there are a whole lot of problems with, one, how are they going to spend all this money? Is it worth it? And two, their specific design seems to me have a great many problems. I've heard rumors that you're going to narrow the traffic lanes on Grand River to only 10 feet wide, which seems to me, I'm an advocate of 10-foot lanes for neighborhoods where you want to slow traffic, but I think 10 foot is too narrow for a street with as high traffic volume as Grand River and the speed of Grand River.
All right, we have a little less than 2 minutes remaining, so at this time, would you like to make any closing statement?
Yes. Well, as you say, I think it takes a very special person to be a township trustee. You need to be smart enough to understand the issues and dumb enough to take the job. But what I try to do as a trustee is I try to listen to the citizens, and when citizens have a concern, I see that those concerns are followed up on. Like a citizen came to the township board, said they had a problem with mold in Grange Acres. So I made sure the staff followed up on that, and they are working on that. They've met with the tenants, they've met with the board members of the owners and so on. So hopefully, you know, a solution is being worked on. And many other things. When citizens come with a problem, I support the citizens and see that we address their concerns. I ask a lot of questions. I'm known for doing that. I'm known for advocating LED lights for energy efficiency. And if you want a person who will be responsive to the citizens, will ask questions, think independently, then voting for John Veenstra in the Democratic primary on August 2nd would be a good idea.
All right, well, thank you very much for being with us today. And this has been a candidate interview with John Veenstra, Democratic incumbent candidate for Meridian Township Board Trustee. I'm Brett Cast, inviting you to watch Ballot Meridian coverage right here on HOMTV.